Oh my goodness. I just discovered this guy. Zerky. He's a great speaker, storyteller. I want to be just like that good. So I'm gonna read some books to just practice my tone speaking, you know, my tongue twisting skill. I don't know if that makes sense. Feelings, Chapter 9. Each of us is a singular narrative which is constructed continually, unconsciously, by, through, and in us. Oliver Sacks. Each of us is a singular narrative which is constructed continually, unconsciously, by, through, and in us. In the early 1950s, a 25-year-old woman named Chris Costner Sizemore walked into a young psychiatrist office complaining of severe and blinding headache. This, she said, was sometimes followed by blackouts. Sizemore appeared to be a normal young mother, in a bad marriage but with no major psychological problems. Her doctor would later describe her as demure and constrained, circumspect, and meticulously truthful. He and she discussed various emotional issues, but nothing that occurred over the next few months of treatment indicated that Sizemore had actually lost consciousness or that she suffered from any serious mental condition, nor was her family aware of any unusual episode. Then one day during therapy, she mentioned that she had apparently gone on a recent trip but had no memory of it. Her doctor hypnotized, her doctor hypnotized, hypnotized, hypnotized. Her doctor hypnotized her, and the amnesia cleared. Several days later, the doctor received an unsigned letter. From the postmark and familiar penmanship, he knew it had come from Sizemore. In the letter, Sizemore said she was disturbed by the recovered memory. How could she be sure she remembered everything? And how could she know the memory loss wouldn't happen again? There was also another sentence scrawled at the bottom of the letter, in a different handwriting that was difficult to decipher. On her next visit, Sizemore denied having sent the letter, though she recalled having begun one that she said she had never completed. Then she began to exhibit signs of stress and agitation. Suddenly she asked, with obvious embarrassment, if hearing an imaginary voice meant she was insane. As the therapist thought about it, Sizemore altered her posture, crossed her legs, and took on a childishly daredevil air he had never before seen in her. As he later described it, a thousand minute alterations of manner, gesture, expression, posture, of nuances in reflex or instinctive reaction, of glance, of eyebrow tilting and eye movement, all argued that this could only be another woman. Then that other woman began to speak of Chris Sizemore and her problems in the third person, using she or her in every sentence. When asked her identity, Sizemore now replied with a different name. It was she, this person who suddenly had a new name, she said, who had found the unfinished letter, added a sentence, and mailed it. In the coming month, Sizemore's doctor administered psychological personality tests while Sizemore took on each of her two identities. He submitted the test to independent researchers, who were not told that they'd come from the same woman. The analyst concluded that the two personalities had markedly different self-images. The woman who'd originally entered therapy saw herself as a passive, weak, and bad. She knew nothing of her other half, a woman who saw herself as active, strong, and good. Sizemore was eventually cured. It took 18 years. Chris Sizemore was an extreme case, but we all have many identities. Not only are we different people at 50 than we are at 30, we also change throughout the day depending on circumstances and our social environment, as well as on our hormonal levels. We behave differently when we are in a good mood than when we are in a bad one. We behave differently having lunch with our boss than when having lunch with our subordinates. Studies show that people make different moral decisions after seeing a happy film, and that women, when ovulating, wear more revealing clothing, become more sexually competitive, and increase their preference for sexually competitive men. Our character is not indelibly stamped on us, but is dynamic and changing. And as the studies of implicit prejudice revealed, we can even be two different people at the same time. An unconscious I who holds negative feelings about blacks, or the elderly, or fat people, or gays, or Muslims, and a conscious I who abhors prejudice. Despite this, psychologists have traditionally assumed that the way a person feels and behaves reflects fixed traits that form the core of that individual's personality. They've assumed that people know who they are and that they act consistently as a result of conscious deliberation. So compelling so compelling was this model that in the 1960s, one researcher suggested that rather than performing costly and time-consuming experiments, psychologists might collect reliable information by simply asking people to predict how they would feel and behave in certain circumstances of interest. Why not? Much of clinical psychotherapy is based on what is essentially the same idea, that through intense therapeutically guided reflection we can learn our true feelings, attitudes, and motives. But remember the statistics on bronze marrying bronze and investors undervaluing the appeals of companies with tongue twister names? None of the bronze had consciously set out to choose a spouse who shared their name, nor did professional investors think their impressions of a new company had been influenced by the case of pronouncing that company's name. Because of the role of subliminal processes, the source of our feelings is often a mystery to us, and so are the feelings themselves. We feel many things we are not aware of feeling. To ask us to talk about our feelings may be valuable, but some of our innermost feelings will not yield their secrets to even the most profound introspection. As a result, many of the psychologists' traditional assumptions about our feelings simply do not hold. Oh man. I don't know, this just inspired me to just keep working on this documentary. I think I can do it well. If I can just, you know, record a voiceover like that, if I can just make the beginning something like that compelling, and then I think I have a much higher chance to, hook people's attention and continue watching the documentary. Anyway, I want to give it a try. I want to try it. I want to try it now. It's 8:46. I'm going to stay at home and work on this. All right. Thanks for watching and reading with me. I just turned off my phone and now I can focus on work. 停止录像。